Curtis is back this week.
Robo, Curtis. Sorry. Probably shouldn't have led with it.
I mean, it's the only place to end it.
Oh, man.
So yeah, this week, 11th episode. Did Titan AE last week with Cody. That was fun. This was less fun.
Aw, you're harping on RoboCop?
Well, RoboCop 2. Though, I mean, I have a huge soft spot for Titan AE, so that's...
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, it would... like, anything was probably going to be like a emotional downgrade for me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, so we're doing RoboCop 2. This is kind of like I did Predator 2 in season 1, and I'm kind of like filling that same slot here with like a lesser talked about sequel to a very popular movie. I think I gave Predator 2 an 8 or a 9 maybe. I might have given it a 9. Jeez. I don't know if that's I don't know if a 9's warranted. I can't remember. But yeah, this was one I was interested in because it was there's a lot of these like 80s action movies with like really popular that had like really popular one entries and just like nothing sequels that no one talks about or cares about. This is the first of 2 sequels to the original RoboCop. This one's released in 1990. The next one's in like 93, so there's 3-year gap. Obviously, they made a reboot in 2014 or something like that, which was all right. Directed by the same guy. Reasonably sure. I'll check that out. Yeah, it had... Oh, no. Yeah, this one has a different director. Yeah, different director. This one's directed by Irvin Kershner. Who... Do I know who that... This is the guy that directed Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, this is directed by the guy who directed Empire. You can tell he needs a script. That's a thing to say. Yeah, no, this is... Which is saying something, but it's... So yeah, this is... I'm just checking out one last thing on the last movie. Okay, yeah, it's got like a very similar budget to the last one. This one has I think maybe only like... Yeah, it's only like $1 million more. So only like a slight... It's very similar in feel, actually. Obviously, they actually use the same technique they used on Ed 209 in the first one on the big bad in this one too. So I'll give it this. You do get a lot of like, okay, there's a couple things that you didn't get in the first one that you get here. Like RoboCop didn't do a ton of fighting the big scary robot in the first one. In this one he fights the big scary robot a lot more. So yeah, there is that. So yeah, this one replaced Irvin Kershner took over for directing. Most of the same actors are in this. Actually, I think all the relevant ones. Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, and Dan O'Hurley all return in this one. Also, Robert Duquy. Is that cutting off his name? Yeah, Robert Duquy is also in it. From the last one. So yeah, we get a good bit of returning actors. We can't say the same for RoboCop 3, which I think I have to review at some point now, which
must complete the Robo trilogy.
Yeah, I looked over like the synopsis of RoboCop 3 when I was doing like some research here, because I'm like, this could be saved maybe if it had like a very direct sequel, but it doesn't appear to. There appears to be like a lot of like hitting the reset button going into the next movie. So yeah, there's just so many plot hooks that I don't feel like are instantly like gone back to, which is a bit of a thing. Like it brings up like very interesting points that it just does not really take to their conclusion in this for some reason. So yeah, and the script is by Wallen Green and Frank Miller, the Frank Miller, who has actually done like a fair bit of RoboCop stuff. I think he does the sequel too, some screenplay toward that. He also does, I think, a comic series called RoboCop versus Terminator, which I think starts out all right at least. I didn't read the whole thing. I only got like a issue or whatever. So there's that. But yeah, he's Frank Miller. Do you know how much do you know about Frank Miller, Curtis?
Very little. I'm bad with names.
Yeah, he is one of the few guys that like reinvigorated Batman in like he was a second wave guy. There was like what was the guy? There was a guy in the 70s who did a lot of like really redarkened Batman from like the campy era. And then
Okay.
in the 80s we got Frank Miller's two seminal Batman graphic novels, The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, which are very good pieces of work. I think there's been some critical reexamination of them now, but they are both very good. Must reads for Batman stuff, really. Oh yeah, Frank Miller also reinvigorated Daredevil was his other big thing. So a lot of the really popular
Okay.
Daredevil stories come from him too. I think he invented Elektra and everything. So there's that, and I think Stick might have been his creation.
So he's done his fair share of writing, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was big in the 80s and he's done like a ton for the industry. He is a guy that has left his mark. He also wrote he's also the guy behind 300 and what's it called? Sin City, which are all pieces of work which are decent. But around nine but around 1990 he went crazy or started going crazy because like fucking you get things like I think Spawn versus Batman is like a 90s Frank Miller work that is shows his deterioration because like in The Dark Knight Returns there's a scene where like Batman like saves the new Robin he's taken on in that book, and he said who's a younger girl, and he's just like really kind to her and is just like comforting her after she nearly falls out of a helicopter and is basically crying, and he does a lot to comfort her. In one of his more recent works, after he had thoroughly gone insane, the series All-Star Batman and Robin, there is a scene where Batman first recruits Dick Grayson. Moments after his parents' death, Dick Grayson, the first Robin, says, "Oh yeah, who are you? Who are you supposed to be?" And the Batman says, "What are you?" And then are you? And then he uses the R slur, and then says, "I'm the goddamn Batman." So he calls a 11-year-old kid the R word,
Oh no.
Batman, and this is a thing he thought he should do. So yeah, he went nuts. Partially, like you could pin it on 9/11, and I think that's part of it, but he did start to go nuts before that, and I can feel his fingerprints on this movie. I tell you. It's in a context where you don't necessarily notice it much, but like all over the second half of this movie, you can just see him wiggling through it. He's become very authoritarian in his older age, which is I think reflected in this. Like he's become just a bastard. Yeah, no, he is bad. I don't nowadays, and this is definitely one of his a sign of his deterioration. We'll get into that a little bit because obviously we gotta talk about the plot to give into specific examples. But yeah, Frank Miller. This is my first time critiquing anything of his to the audience, and I felt we had to bring in the backstory there because, uh, yeah, oh Frank, why'd you go nuts? I mean,
Frank.
there was, yeah, there were signs of it beforehand. I can say, like, if you read some of the '80s stuff, but like, it's not. nearly as bad as it gets after he starts writing everything like at Sin City, which Sin City's all right, but it's not conducive to writing a superhero comic, which he does a lot. And he still gets work, which is the weird part. He's still getting a lot of work. DC still gives him jobs, and I'm like, every time I see one, I'm like, what? Why are you still giving him work? He's nuts. Everything he's produced is pretty much bad. He's calmed down recently, but I don't think he's good. He hasn't redeemed himself. Anyway, so the plot of RoboCop 2. I did also rewatch the original RoboCop in preparation for this review, so they are both fairly fresh in my mind.
I feel like I feel like that would have been the smart idea. I have not watched RoboCop before, and I was like, all right, time to go straight into RoboCop 2. And so I was I didn't think I understood it pretty well, but yeah, there was some blanks I may have missed.
The basics of the first one, this wasn't an issue with Predator 2 because Predator 2 has like completely different characters from Predator 1. But yeah, the plot of RoboCop 1 is that a police officer by the name of Murphy gets transferred to a really crime-ridden part of Detroit, which is deteriorating under the police force has been privatized by this organization called OCP, which is a business who owns like prisons and stuff. They're owning a ton of they're owning a ton of stuff they probably shouldn't be, but it's like just privatization taken to its absolute extremes. So yeah, this Murphy character, he gets transferred into this harsh area of Detroit. He gets killed by these criminals, and then OCP, who owns Murphy's body because this is a cyberpunk dystopia, they turn him into RoboCop and use him and then do some things. Then it turns out that the guy and one of the guys in charge of SCP is in charge of a lot of the also in charge of a lot of the crime in Detroit. So when RoboCop goes to arrest him, it's revealed that he has a fourth, like a directive in him that says that he can't hurt the corporate people. And then he goes to confront him in front of the board, and the board fires him, so he shoots the bad guy. It's hard to pick up on what he accomplishes in that movie. Very much his arc in that is that he claims his humanity toward the end, where they ask him his name and he says, "I'm Murphy," and he's kind of, we'll get into this, but yeah, that's the plot of RoboCop 1.
I felt like from not watching it and just watching this one that very much the first one was like the birth of RoboCop and like the different things he has to overcome, and then there was different things he was dealing with in this one. But yeah, very much so.
Yeah, Cliff Notes. OCP is a mega corporation that owns the Detroit Police Department, and they take over the body of Murphy once he gets killed, and he gets turned into RoboCop, and eventually toward the end, RoboCop figures out that some of the corporate guys are in charge of the crime in the city, and then I said this already. What am I doing? Anyway, RoboCop 2. It was, yeah, the original RoboCop is very much a like critique on American culture. Like really, it was doing cyberpunk stuff. Cyberpunk's a lot of like anti-corporate stuff. I think a lot of what you're supposed to pick up on is just like, wouldn't it be horrible if corporations were allowed to do this? A key example of this is that it predicted the rise of private prisons in the United States, which started becoming it's not that simple, but it started becoming a big deal about 3 years before the original movie comes out. So it was a good deal predicting that thing that happened 3 years before the movie came out, and has not been notably courted since. So we live in RoboCop. is basically what I'm trying to say.
We are
Yeah.
RoboCop.
We're just waiting for like Bezos to buy out the New York Police Department or something like that. Could happen,
Bezos
yeah.
or Elon Musk. Something happens, and then RoboCop is real.
Well, I think Bezos would take LAPD. Isn't he LA based? Or where's Bezos based? Musk would
Bezos
probably
is
be
everywhere.
LAPD. Yeah. Oh, isn't he though? uh, so yeah. They start the movie with like a commercial, which is a cinematic technique that exists in the RoboCop universe to like portray like where the culture's at. The first one they do is one where like they're advertising a security system for a car, which if someone breaks into the car and tries to hotwire it when they sit in the seat, they get electrocuted to death, and then they get shoved out. And then they say it won't run down your battery, which bullshit. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't care how sci-fi this future is. There's no way it's gonna run your like yeah, it's gonna be fine the first couple of years, but when that vehicle gets old and that battery's starting to go, you're gonna like end up stranded after someone's tried to steal your car. Is how this is gonna end up, and then you'll have to call AAA, and then you're fucked. Anyway, this is actually an interesting thing because Frank Miller actually does this too in like his Dark Knight Returns. He does it occasionally and like in later works too. And I think that's maybe why he maybe got the job in this, because he also was an expert in how to use this technique. Was I'd say I missed the 80s, but it wasn't all that great. I miss 80s Frank Miller. Can we just can we just like erase Frank Miller's memories from like 1990 onward and then just get 80s Frank Miller back? Is that a thing we can do?
Frank Miller. Just saying.
Yeah, Robo Frank. We also get a bit of news that Ed 109, the big scary machine that was featured in the first movie is like a precursor to RoboCop, is patrolling the street in various cities, but is not terribly effective, which was clear in the first movie too. I think like RoboCop defeats Ed 209 in the first one by like, or one of the Ed 209s by luring it down a flight of stairs and causing it to fall over. So these are pretty terrible machines. Also, it killed an executive in the first one too, so it's very much a terrible device, a terrible product. But we get a little bit of news of this guy Kane, who's like on this drug called Nuke, which is more addictive and more dangerous than the average drug, which they always feel the need to do in these movies, because at the risk of saying this, real drugs aren't scary, really. Like, he's very much kind of like a Charles Manson type, where he's on like LSD, but like lots of harmless people are also on LSD. But yeah, he's addicted to Nuke, and he is being like a big crime guy and being a menace to the city. And he bombed a drug treatment center because they figure that drugs need to be in everyone's veins, and they need to strawman this clumsy metaphor for crime because they need the villain of the movie not to be the corporate people. And I don't see the point of that, because the corporation needs to fall in this case. And I gotta eventually find my way out of talking in this voice, because this bit's getting old. And yeah, no, they created this straw man so they can somehow make crime as scary as the mega corporation, which is causing the crime. For the record, just to be clear, he was causing the crime in the corporation. One of the guys in the corporation was causing the crime in the first one. I have no doubt in the world that the corporation is also supplying nuke, because like these corporate
Yeah,
guys just have access to it. Like at two or three separate parts in the movies, different members of OCP just produce a big ass vial of nuke.
they just whip it out like nothing.
Am I to believe they went to some dumb street vendor to get a hold of this nuke? They probably put it on the streets themselves to increase the crime. Yeah.
And not even just like a little bit of
Yeah.
nuke.
No, it's not like a tiny baggie. They get like a big vial.
It's not like the little it's not the at all like the like with the what you see the average consumer using on the streets when they hand them like the little package, like the little cassette box of nuke. It's like a huge ass TMNT vial of ooze.
Yeah, no, like it's like a what would I say? Like a wrist, like a forearm sized vial of this stuff. They
A
produce it like separate
thermos.
occasions. Yeah, thermos style. So yeah, this is weird because they have to do a lot of work to make the crime as scary as the corporation. I have concerns about that. Yeah, so we're in the midst of a police strike which had begun toward the end of RoboCop 1 because they are now part of a private corporation and have something to actually strike for, as opposed to real life where policemen seem to strike over wanting more accountability or wanting less accountability, I guess, because police lose their shit about that sometimes because I'm supposed to like un uh what's the word I'm looking for? Unflinchingly support the cop no matter what they do, I guess is what I'm supposed to do. Because a lot of like police are like really anti internal affairs, which considering that we get like semi regular news stories about blind guys getting shot, I think they probably need. I need to stop talking in this voice. I'm not going to talk in that voice for the rest of the episode. I'm gonna have to do it like the entire time.
I doubt it. It's making a return, I call
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna end up doing that for like the entire 2-hour review if I do it like that. So yeah, there's a police strike which is allowing for tons of crime to happen, which I guess there's always some of that. To be fair, it's not a someone would probably loot a place while there's a police strike. Maybe not as
And it involves the businessmen, it involves children. There's no boundaries for the looting. Everybody's involved. Everyone's equally blamable.
yeah. So our first real crime we see of the movie, first real crime, as if like creating a security system that kills people isn't a crime.
There's not
Yeah,
real
I feel
crime.
like that's a long statement. I feel like there's always already been a crime in this movie. But our first like set piece crime is a bunch of guys blowing open a gun store so they can steal guns, and RoboCop comes to save him because he's an ununionized scab. Yeah, that's what he is. Yeah, that's actually an accurate statement. I guess you could say he's a. I mean, the OCP is under the impression that he's a robot, but who says robots can't be scabs? Yeah, they do that. We also got a scene where like some old lady gets robbed. Before this, we had there was a scene before this where an old lady got robbed after her cart got hit by some douchebag driver, and then that guy gets robbed by a couple of alleged prostitutes who then run away, and then the store explodes, and we're into this scene. A cop, and this gun shop is just full of guns. And this is kind of like, this entire movie is my argument against like, oh, government oppression requires you not to have, requires the Second Amendment to be abolished before oppression can happen. Because they have tons of guns in this movie, and these people have no rights. Anytime anyone in the future asks me if like, oh, we need says, oh yeah, we need the Second Amendment is the one that keeps us from getting oppressed. I just point them to this movie or any of the RoboCop movies. All the RoboCop guys are like heavily armed.
Yeah, they're never not packing. They know how to bring things to the fight.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone in this has huge guns, and like the government's still wildly oppressive. I can maybe count on one hand the number of times that RoboCop reads people his rights between both these movies. Because yeah, that's so RoboCop pulls up, but a police car. We don't know it's RoboCop yet. It gets an empty police car pulls up to the gun shop and gets blown up by an RPG that is in this gun shop because there are no gun regulations in this universe. Because I guess the NRA got it so that RPGs count as guns. So yeah, they blow up an empty cop car, which is just plainly what happens. No one's in the car because they're very clumsily trying to show that like RoboCop can survive an explosion. They use it's funny because later in the movie another cop car gets blown up and it's also empty, but in that one it's supposed to be empty. So I'm like, okay, that's confusing because clearly he doesn't show up in a police car when they can't afford a stuntman. Seems like that wouldn't have been like, or I suppose I don't know how much the RoboCop suit costs to throw it on like a mannequin to throw in an exploding car. Would have only been two more. Can't be that much money, can it? Like to would have thrown you like how much does a RoboCop suit cost? I have no idea. Anyway,
These are the things we need to know.
yeah, feels like it wouldn't have cost that much money. Get two more RoboCop suits on a mannequin. Just seems like a thing you can do. So yeah, the RoboCop emerges from the burning car and kills the guys robbing the gun store. We get a reminder text on the screen of RoboCop's three directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocents, and uphold the law. And also a secret fourth one that's he cannot act against a member of the OCP or a high level member of the OCP. So yeah, we get a sense of those as he resolves this robbery. The next scene we get, he shows back up at the police station and he gets stuff thrown at him by the other cops because he's being a scab, plain and simple. And then he goes to deal with another issue. It's a arcade where they are tracking down some nuke dealers, and they end up in a spying on the place. They notice that there's a cop that is dealing information to the nuke dealers in exchange for some nuke. He gives them like some patrol patterns so that he can blow up some cop cars at some or the bad guys can blow up some cop cars at one point. RoboCop, yeah, off his partner officer and Lewis, who they go into the arcade to handle this thing. RoboCop apprehends the dirty cop and arrests him while Officer Ann intercepts the dealers, who is a guy and a child who attempt to run away. The child at one point shoots RoboCop. Yeah, the kid, whose name is Hob, shoots at RoboCop, who RoboCop is not willing to shoot because apparently he's not willing to shoot a child, which is good. Because no one would never ever suggest that a cop should like heartlessly gun down a child just because they're aiming a gun at them. Granted, like there's dangerous, but he could have ducked that away at this point. But he is also bulletproof, so. Oh god, if the fact that I say this is just gonna have some idiot in our non-existent comment section just be like, oh yeah, but like, what do you want the cop to get shot? I'm like, yeah, I don't. It should be a bad thing for cops to shoot kids. That's the point. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, the kid runs off, and Anne and Anne apprehends him and the drug dealer, the adult drug dealer. The kid's also a drug dealer who seems to have a weird amount of authority in this operation for some reason. The kid's like, I
Yup.
guess semi spoilers, but he's like second in command basically, which is weird.
It's exactly what I would put it as too.
So they start, Anne and the drug dealer have a scuffle. Hobb tries to garrote her, which is the name of that little wire thing. Obviously, he has difficulty
Oh.
with that because he is a child and she is a fit police officer. So the kid's like 13 or something, I assume. So that happens. The kid and the drug dealer get away. So there's that. When RoboCop had been shot at, he had gotten a little flashback of his son from the previous movie. At first, I thought that maybe Hobb was his son, but I see no indication of that. I guess I just got the kids confused. They're both blonde. So,
They're both the same size.
yeah, they'd be about the same age. I guess, minus the. Actually, this isn't taking place terribly long after RoboCop 1 because the strike's still going. And even to Soving, that's a long strike. So there's that. And so this causes him to go check in on his wife, Murphy, because he hasn't really reconnected with her, despite the fact that he knows who he is. And this has gotten some complaints from the police department because he's too shy to like talk to her and like admit who he is. So OCP has arranged this this setup where Murphy is going to explain that he is not Murphy, but he is RoboCop wearing like Murphy's body, and that he exists to honor him. And it's a really sick scene. Like, it's good. It's really heart wrenching, but it's like tough to watch, honestly. Like, it's just a terrible thing they're doing to them. And it's really outside the rest of the movie because this clearly sets up OCP as the villain. I don't think he ever gets back together with his family, which is disturbing. So yeah, he does that because they basically tell him he can't do it and that he's not Murphy and that he's mistaken, and it's very hard to watch. This movie, like I've said I don't like this movie, but the first half of it is actually reasonable. Like, it's very good for the beginning, maybe like 45 minutes. It's fine as far as RoboCop's concerned, as far as like a RoboCop movie would go, anyway. But yeah, this is something. But yeah, that's just yeah, what a sick scene, making him like say he's not who he is, and and convince, and like trying to convince him that he's not like his own sentient being and that he's just a machine, or at least making him say it because he's too guilty to like go back into his own life, which is his. But yeah, no, that's sick what they did to him,
Yeah, it actually is a pretty deep scene.
which is a shame we don't get to see OCP get their comeuppance at the end of the movie, because they don't, spoiler alert, they don't really get punished for this. Maybe like incidental punishments, but no, it's bad. Meanwhile, we cut to the secondary plot of the movie. I suppose that's a harsh word for it. It's not really a secondary plot, but Detroit is going bankrupt, which caused a this movie actually got a bit of a reemergence in 2013 when Detroit actually went bankrupt, or was actually going bankrupt. One of the two. I didn't really read up on it, but essentially his contract with Detroit owes a lot of money to OCP. I think only like $50 million. It's not actually that much in terms of government money, but the federal government is absolutely not willing to bail them out in this scenario, which I believe, I guess, because a lot of there's obviously government corruption going on here on like every level, because one like corporate corruption, corporate cronyism and government corruption go hand in hand. So essentially, if they default on this loan, OCP owns the city of Detroit, which is as bad as it sounds. They basically portray the worst possible version of this happen. We get some details on it later, and essentially, like OCP is like not only like in charge of anything. There's not even going to be elections. Like OCP is going to literally own the town as a company town. They're going to like tear down everyone's house and make them live in this these mega apartments in this place they're calling Delta City, which they plan to make. So we're very much in the midst of this death of Detroit, which is a very interesting thing for a cyberpunk series to bring up. Like it's a transitionary period between the real world and the cyberpunk dystopia, which we don't get as much. We like how many times do we see a thing where just like the Mega City 1 gets made and how that ended up? It's usually like vague nonsense about like there was an apocalypse or a nuclear war and that caused everything to happen. But in this one, there's no nuclear war. This is just like the inevitable result of like ongoing corporate cronyism and government corruption leading to something very bad and undemocratic. That's actually very disturbing. This like gave me hope for the movie. They bring in the mayor who is you know what? He'd be an interesting character if I didn't know the rest of the movie. I was siding with him for a while. I sided with him to the end, really. He's the best character. I like the mayor of Detroit in this. Yeah, he obviously actually no, I can't even say I was going to say, "Oh, I mean he drove the city into the ground," but did he? Like OCP was going up hard against him. Clearly, like they were financing several criminal organizations in the city, like like fucking with them at every turn, costing them millions of dollars and like causing this public relations nightmare. So OCP has been sabotaging him from the start. And could he have maybe stopped this? I don't know. Maybe he was completely powerless. Yeah, he acts like a bit of a buffoon, but would anyone have really been up to the task of like saving Detroit from these people? I don't know. This is a very interesting start of a movie that like kills me that the rest of this movie isn't good. And like or at least that like RoboCop 3 didn't turn out good and like didn't follow up directly from the events of this. Cuz this does actually to bring back Empire Strikes Back from the beginning of the thing, which this guy directed, this has that sort of feel to it. Evil wins at the end of this movie. They like RoboCop beating the bad guy at the end of this is a cursory victory. It does not save Detroit. OCP still owns Detroit at the end of this movie. So you get this awesome setup where RoboCop 3 would be the Return of the Jedi, where like they finally get to destroy the Empire and like start some sort of like anti-corporate revolution. But we don't get that, obviously. Like I read enough of the RoboCop 3 trailer to like thoroughly believe that's not true. But fuck, man, this has potential.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I had really very little griefs with a good chunk of the movie, especially how it portrayed at the beginning, because I was always like, since I didn't watch the first one, I definitely understood what happened in the first one and what their trajectory was for the second film in pointing out the flaws and the different things and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I had no griefs with it. I'm being honest, until a few select things that maybe went a little awry in the later part of the film. But in terms of like you said, the first 45 minutes are actually a well thought out arc in terms of like setting up the movie.
Yeah, this if like RoboCop 3 can easily like could have easily like very followed up on this as like closely as RoboCop 2 followed from RoboCop 1, cuz you're getting like a very good setup if nothing else. Um, yeah, like this, like this, the stuff of like classic cyberpunk is in this, which is lovely. Cyberpunk's a fun genre, obviously. We just we don't really get a lot of cyberpunk.
Yeah, they don't. We. I definitely got a glimpse of it, and the only reason why I really recognize it as possibly cyberpunk is because of the cyberpunk trailers coming out for Cyberpunk 20. What is it?
Yeah,
I forget what year it is, but this comes out in December here.
yeah. 2077, I think.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it seems like it's very present right now, but we don't really get a lot of it. Especially in movie form. I count this because it has the trappings, even if it's not like aesthetically the same in a lot of places. But like
Hmm.
this very much has a bit more of like a more cartoony robot feel. But I think it still fits the bill in like everything other than having that Blade Runnery setup, which we don't really get we don't really get a lot of it. So I take it, I guess take it where we can get. It's not as bad as like steampunk where we get basically none of it. Like
Hmm.
steampunk is starved for stuff. The genre everyone likes, but no one has any reading for it. So yeah, so the mayor is a kind of like a not like a budget Eddie Murphy type, if I'm to say. Like yeah, that was the end of my point, was that they kind of betray him as like this goofball who's wildly incompetent, but I don't entirely buy that. And most it also doesn't help that like I think his way out of this toward the end of the movie is actually a decent plan. So there's that. So I had a ton of moments where I was rooting for this character, and you can't take that away from me. The mayor is the best character. I'm saying it now. Yeah, so they're gonna so Detroit's gonna be taken over by OCP unless the mayor can acquire $50 million, which he can't. He tries a telephone later, and actually he does get a hit, so that actually works all right. But yeah, he's not able to get the money on his own. Presumably, I think the federal government or the state government would have to bail them out, or like they'd have to take on a different debt. But probably the state of Michigan or the federal government would have to bail them out in order to get out of this, and they don't seem willing to. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, we've got our conflicts. We only resolve like one of them, and not even really resolving that one, just like addressing it at the end of the movie. I said I'd stop talking like that. We're moving on. Um, so OCP is experimenting with getting a second RoboCop out in the field, partially because they need a follow up, and partially because, well, the police are on strike. They're running off maybe like bare minimum cops. There's probably with this sort of thing you can't like go on a full on strike. So like some people need to be working at all times. So yeah, they're running off at like a skeleton crew of the police. So a second scab would really work pretty well. They try two other RoboCop. They try two versions of RoboCop, which are coming. The first one dies and explodes. The second one kills itself. They're very interesting scenes. Like the second RoboCop rips its head off and like exposes like an exposed skull. This is where we're introduced to a uh, secondary character, one of the primary characters of the movie, a psychologist known as Juliet Fax, who is in charge of, who is being put in charge of trying to find a suitable brain to put into the RoboCop follow up. This is also where we get the name of the movie, where it's RoboCop 2, so that's kind of clever because they're introducing RoboCop 2. So yeah, I'm clever with that. I'm happy
I
with that
like when
pun.
they say, I like when they put the movie's title in the movie.
Yeah, they make fun of that, but it's fun. Don't lie. We love it. We all love it.
I enjoyed it.
So Juliet Faxes points out that like, hey, a lot of cops are just macho men, and that and aren't really set up with this. The reason that Murphy turned out so well is because he was the ideal police officer, and most police officers aren't the ideal police officer. So she says, hey, we maybe need to expand our search window and like try to find someone who has those traits who's not necessarily in the police department, because we've just been like recruiting police because we own the bodies of police somehow, because this is a cyberpunk dystopia. So yeah, she's put in charge of finding a candidate to be RoboCop 2. He had got RoboCop had gotten some information that the man in charge of nuke distribution in the city, Kane, this religious type leader who's very culty, is hiding out at a place called the Sludge Plant, which produces sludge. Because I was gonna make some joke about like this place being run by Captain Planet villains, but yeah, no, that's Captain Planet could just be a cyberpunk story. Let's be honest.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to my Kickstarter of a Captain Planet reboot, where we take Captain Planet and put him into a cyberpunk dystopia. That makes I'm saying this is trying to make this into a joke, but I'm just like, okay, that just makes sense. That's just how that should work. We don't get any cyberpunk movies where we actually solve the problems, which is the problem. So Captain Planet and cyberpunk might just be a decent way of going about this. In fact, if I buy cyberpunk, I might just make my character Captain Planet. That sounds fun. I'm convinced of getting this game kind of now.
Now that you have a proven story and a mission and a reason to
Yeah.
get it, I think it needs to be done. I need to see this.
Yeah, I'll get it eventually, and we'll do like a Twitch stream where I like pretend to be a Captain Planet type, and I'll just call it like Captain Planet plays Cyberpunk, and then everyone will just be like, "That makes sense." Coming
And
soon.
Every answer you make and every like conversation has to be based around making the planet a better place.
I'm just gonna be an environmentalist.
An environmentalist warrior in it.
I'm laughing, but I can't make this a joke because I'm serious.
Some flirtatious dialogue comes up and the person's like, I always throw my cans on the ground, and then you're just like, I'm gonna have to leave now.
Yeah.
That doesn't sit well with Captain Planet.
I can't love someone who doesn't recycle. Sorry, babe. I can't be with someone who's not also a vegan.
You're not the person who I fell in love with.
This is fun. Oh, I need to do this now. I've been convinced. Anyway, so
RoboCop 2 review
yeah,
scratched out the birth of Captain Planet, the cyberpunk experience.
Give me the keys. Let me do this. Give me the things that give me the power, because you are too cowardly to. Whoever owns the right to Captain Planet. Oh, the world's a cyberpunk dystopia. That's why it's not funny. We're laughing, but we know it's all true. So RoboCop drives up to the sludge plant and drives his car over a landmine so that he can sneak his way in and put them off guard. RoboCop wanders in and finds Elvis's body. This guy has Elvis's body sitting in this place.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was like. Yeah. I did not know if that was just like a pretend fake nod to something, or if it was actually supposed to be like, no, he legit has Elvis's body.
Yeah, it's at very least like a skeleton in like an Elvis costume surrounded by a bunch of like memorabilia. I mean, could he have stolen the stuff from Graceland? I don't know. Where is Elvis buried? Memphis? I think it's Memphis.
I have no clue.
Isn't that how that song goes? Because like walking in Memphis, because he feels like a spiritual experience walking near Elvis. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, he has like Elvis body lying around, because that's how this works.
And many other murals and faces.
Yeah. So he starts walking in there, and then RoboCop gets shot at. They find Kane, Kane does a little speech, and then Hobb, the kid, shoots off RoboCop's hand with a big machine gun, which seems like underkill. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's enough. And then RoboCop gets shot by like a taser thing, which he gets out of, and then eventually he gets clamped onto by a magnet, and then restrained by chains and whatnot. Where at which point the nuke cults, which I'm gonna call them, starts like tearing RoboCop apart limb by limb with like jackhammers and stuff. This is actually this is before the turning point of the movie where I started like deciding against it. This is actually like a really good scene, really, because it puts up the stakes. Because these guys actually managed to destroy RoboCop, which is kind of terrifying. He gets destroyed pretty badly and ripped off. His mask gets ripped off, and they just like dump his parts out by the police station, and he has to get repaired. This could have been an interesting scene to make him blue, because he's blue in this movie, and there's no real explanation for that. Yeah, he's more silvery in the original one, but he's blue in this. So I don't see why they didn't turn him blue in this scene.
Yeah.
After like he gets repaired.
Wouldn't have been too difficult.
Yeah. Besides, cop cars are blue sometimes. I don't have a argument against him being blue. It's kind of cool. He comes off as silver in some of the posters, but he is very blue tinged. So yeah, he's on death's door. They have to do a lot to save him. Eventually, he recovers. He's in serious pain. Meanwhile, the the nuke addicted cop has been bailed out by Kane and has been told to meet up with him. He is killed by Kane for spilling the beans, and because he knows so much, so he's killed before he can go to trial or anything. I'll be right back here. I'm just gonna mute.
Cool. Sounds good. I have been given the power of eternal Mike. Does one talk now? Does one give this opportunity of power a true calling? Or does one stay silent and hide upon the whispers in which we once wore?
Okay, I'm back.
Cool.
All right. Okay, I'm just gonna... There. I got marks. Oh yeah, so while RoboCop is damaged, the Juliet Fax and the other one of the other executives who's like directly in charge of the RoboCop project and the OCP police project are like discussing ways to like meddle with his programming while he's unconscious. And this is the point where I turned against the movie. This is pretty much the exact points. I have written here, fuck off, Frank, because yeah, this is the exact moment. Because, you know, sometimes it's like a transitionary period, but other times like, okay, here it is, we're done. So yeah, they've brought up like a bunch of board members and like focus testers to see how they want to adjust RoboCop's programming while he's in the shop. And they add a ton of directives, which cut, and they're like, oh, he needs to be friendlier and he shoots too many people, which is you may think I'm gonna say like, oh geez, that's the problem. They're like parodying like the implication is that they're putting too many regulations on this police officer, and that's going to make him an ineffective police officer. My problem is that they're saying that police regulation is stupid and needs to be like treated as like a joke, frankly. Just frankly, Frank, because they like Frank, because they include like a bunch of stupid stuff and like want them like go to see school children eventually, which he did in the last movie. He went to visit school children in RoboCop 1. He did some of this stuff. And honestly, he was more he was perfectly effective in the first couple movies. Is like I don't think he really like it's not like the first one's not like this scene where like every interaction is like blatantly like breaking modern police protocol. The first one it has like a couple scenes like granted if you want to be pedantic about it, every one of those scenes probably still has a problem in it with as far as like following police protocol, but like there's a scene where like he disarms where like he gives people rights in the first one. He doesn't just shoot everybody. He gives people decent advice. He's honestly not terribly programmed so far. Like he goes to he saves a woman and like recommends her to a crisis center so that she can get the help she needs after the traumatic event, and it's not actually so bad. I'm not saying you can't fix him to make him less violent, and he probably should be less violent. Although I'm guessing that's not really in the cards because they've, as we've said, OCP has manufactured this crime-ridden state for Detroit, and they want to portray the only answer to the problem is brutal police violence. So yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, they've decided to like put a bunch of regulations into RoboCop to make him totally ineffective. Once he recovers, he's totally like ineffective. He tries reading his Miranda rights to a dead body of this oh yeah, so the first mission that RoboCop goes on is him and Anne have to like foil this robbery of an electronics store being perpetrated by this kids baseball team and a coach. No word of a lie. That's an exact description of what they're doing. They're wearing their baseball uniforms and everything. And shoots and kills the coach, and gathers up the kids and gets them to starts showing them some authority. But RoboCop starts giving the coach his Miranda rights because which he's dead, so there's problems there. And then he talks to the children and is being very ineffective. For a brief moment, I thought maybe he was faking this during the scene where like they initially were installing these programs, but no, he's actually screwed up. Which the arc in the first movie was to make him like overcome his programming, so it's a little weird that he's not able to overcome it at all now, I guess. But I mean, you can make arguments. Anyway, so he lets the kids go. These violent little kids who were beating up the shop owner, who should probably at least be sent back to their parents. I mean, you can't really do much to them, but at very least, drive home in a police car. Although police strike is still happening. So yeah, he's very stuck. He turns off a fire hydrant that some kids are playing in because he talks like Captain Planet, because Frank thinks that Captain Planet is bad. Yeah, Captain Planet would be a thing. That's an 80s cartoon, right?
I think so.
We can Google this real quick.
First episode, 1990.
Oh, okay. So this appeared in tandem with this, more or less. So I don't think it would have had a ton to do with the writing process.
Final episode, 1996. Unless there's one before this, Captain Planet.
Yeah, no, I think this... I mean, there was environmentalism before this. I'm sure there's some 80s cartoons where there's some environmental messages because... yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he's talking all cheesy, and they eventually take him back to the station because he's being totally ineffective. And then he nearly kills a guy for smoking. He does miss
after the kids roast
to his
him.
credit. Yeah, he turns off the fire hydrant and immediately like pulls his gun on a guy for smoking. I can't think of his crime. Like he's outside. Is he maybe like even like with Tille's like anti-smoking legislation where like you're not allowed to smoke within a certain area of a doorway, at least in some places. I don't think he's breaking any laws. He's standing next to a corner. He's being a responsible smoker, as far as you can be a responsible smoker. So Yeah, no, he's literally not breaking any laws. He's just being dumbly violent. So yeah, there's some logic loops in this. He's clearly being in a bad point, and they gotta like fix these contradictions before Captain Kirk comes along and gets his brain to explode. So they try to bring him back to the police station. The one person in charge of him, who's like a lady who's hot for RoboCop. Oh, I could have said RoboCop. Damn it! And said hot for RoboCop, and I wasted my opportunity. Uh, I have editing. I can just say that. I can just like say it now. I
Yeah,
can just
you
and
can
like cut
edit
out the
it in.
first
You
bit.
can redo your
Yeah,
joke.
yeah, no. There's this. Yeah, there's one. He's doing there, and they bring him back to the place, and we meet we're the one doctor who's in charge of the RoboCop problem, who's hot for RoboCop. Nailed it the first time. And yeah, they're trying to do it, and they say, "Oh, get rid of all the directives." No, don't get rid of all the directives. We shouldn't get rid of all the directives. The first three directives were more or less good. Really, and they do end up doing that. So he's just like totally without oversight now. And I'm not saying like he was in a good spot before, but it was better than nothing. Yeah, no, this is bad. So he ends up like grabbing onto a voltage box and electrocuting himself until the directives go away, because that's how they say they can get rid of them. So they do that. There were also like 270 plus directives I saw on the screen, just for context. So that's probably too much for any computer. So he says, we need to end the strike because we're cops and we can never be on strike. Which, in this context, they're actually a laborer, so I'm not, like, arguing with it here. We'll move on. I've had enough of I'm sure they've had enough of my lefty anti-police, fuck the police narrative. Anyway, so yeah, he ends the strikes so that they can go after Kane. He uses tons of excessive force. Is it this at this point in the movie also Knob? What is his name? What was his name? Don Knob
Knob.
Knob no Hob.
Hob.
Hob kills a cop. Hob kills a cop, by the way, during this gunfight. He has like a little cassette player that turns into a Uzi or whatever, and he kills a cop and injures another cop. So they get in there. The boy and this one lead female gang member escape in like this armored van, and Kane attempts to escape in another armored van with a ton of money in it, which is what these vans are containing. But RoboCop grabs onto the van and chases him off, steals a motorcycle of a guy who runs over him, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
Although the one bike he steals is the guy who's actually trying to go around him, so I kind of feel a little bad. Although it seemed like he was going to run over his arm, but that's kind of funny. So he gets the motorcycle, and he eventually rams into the window of this armored car and gets Kane to topple the vehicle over and nearly killing Kane in the process. He ends up in the hospital with mortal injuries. So yeah, Hob and the woman are not going to go back for Kane. The woman wants to, but Hobbs just like, no, we shouldn't. Fuck him. And he's probably dead already, to be fair. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Dr. Juliet kills Kane because she's come to the insane conclusion that he is a good candidate to be RoboCop somehow.
The best candidate.
Yeah, no, I'd argue with this less, but he's also highly addicted to nuke, which is a drug which they're trying to deal with, and that all ends up causing problems later in the movie. So that's really the cursory problem, is that they pick someone who's addicted to a drug. So yeah, they figured that this cult leader is the only other guy who can be a RoboCop. Oh God, what was? So this was a terrible idea. So she unplugs Kane and has doctors like take his brain out, brain and spinal cord actually, and eyeballs.
Yup.
Somehow that's the way they want to do that, which I guess I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if that's the proper way to harvest a man's brain and put it into a robot body. But it just seems weird.
Just a little hunch.
Yeah, I'd complain about them leaving the eyes behind, but ugh, I don't. None of this, that doesn't make this better, them not leaving the eyes behind. I mean, I suppose they're attached. I'm going to go on. This is making queasy talking about this. I'm just thankful they didn't show more of the dissection. They cut
Yeah.
off his brain cap and like somehow get his entire like lower part of his head off him. I don't know how that works.
I don't either, but it was impressive.
I don't want to get into this creepy medical school bullshit they're getting into. So the mayor is having a telethon because he's trying to raise the $50 million to save Detroit. He's raised about like 500, which I don't know how long he's been at this. So, although 50 million's a lot for any telethon, I don't think they make that much money. Maybe collectively. The one around here raises like $400,000 a year, I think.
I think so.
Yeah,
They're usually
like
pretty good. I don't know if they're as profitable as, like, not profitable, but as fundraisable as they used to be. But I think they still do a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, it's a solid 6-figure number. So yeah, he's he gets this phone call on live TV that says someone's donated the money, which is good. But OCP's actually they're idiots is the short of it, and they've invested too much of their money into getting this started. So if Detroit doesn't default, they're screwed essentially, because they need that money. And frankly, the second he has control of the city again, you think the mayor's going to continue his relationship with OCP?
Hell to the no.
So he's going to go meet with this anonymous donor a little later. It's actually Hobb and the lady who are going to donate the money in the back of the truck they have. Yeah, he gets a discussion with him, and Hobb says, "Hey, I'll let you I'll give you the money, but you just let me do drugs, do my drug empire," which I'm not as against as as a person would probably think, because he's more or less legalizing drugs in this sense, which is probably the easiest way to do this. It's just like, hey, I'm legalizing drugs in Detroit. I don't know that he can do that actually, but he can at the very least like instruct them not to. I mean, it sounds shady, and like people are like, oh, we can't be dealing with these people, they're gangsters. But like, honestly, decriminalizing the drugs would actually solve a lot of problems, because you could like mitigate this away from people stealing and stuff and use less violence. The drug war is more trouble than it's worth, is what I'm saying. And again, like, OCP's the really real villain here. Let's be honest. Anything else seems like very incidental compared to them. It's like if you could shoot Al Capone or Hitler, which one would you shoot? It just seems the scales are not aligned here. But like I said, this if the mayor was actually able to pay this debt, it would screw over OCP something really bad. So they send OCP sends RoboCane after them, and RoboCane goes to kill everyone at this meeting, which he succeeds with. Actually, we briefly think that he's going to go soft on his girlfriend, the woman that was with Hobb, but he kills her. The mayor manages to escape through a storm drain, and Hobb gets himself into the truck to save himself, but he is grievously wounded somehow. I'm guessing actually that once he got into the truck, RoboCane just like shook the thing around a lot so that um, he died. So yeah, so they were talking. So yeah, the end of crime in Detroit was narrowly avoided by the OCP, who could also end crime because they're to cause the crime. Because yeah, this is all corporate interests' faults. This is a weird scene. RoboCane blows up the lights when he enters the building, which is a weird thing to do. Because can he? I guess he can see in the dark, maybe, but it just seems like he would have gotten further by opening fire on the crowd first, because they were all at like one big table. But yeah, so RoboCop pulls up after the fact and catches Hobbs' dying words. RoboCop has found out that he's found out that there was a big robot that came in this, so that gives him the information that OCP's killed these people. So the town's dead. The town's screwed. So OCP is only hours away from owning Detroit. We've talked about why that's bad, because why this is undemocratic, because the city's OCP is going to be like a corporate dictator over the city. Anyone, he says, oh, well, why can't people vote? And he says, well, anyone can buy stock. And the mayor rightly points out that, like, no, we can't, because he's thought about this for more than 5 seconds, which OCP is not counting on people to do. So they're just making the slightest argument in their favor to make this seem not as bad. And they're very much banking at this point at no one believing the mayor about the robot, and he's not saying anything because he was going to go meet with a criminal. So there's also that. The old man in charge of the OCP, and that's what they call him, the old man. He's holding a press conference. He's saying he's going to make Delta City. He holds up a bottle of nuke, which RoboCane, which he's declared RoboCop 2, is going to tries to take away. And this causes a scuffle, which ends up with Kane taking his controls and turning and arming all his weapons so that he can reach Rampage, which is all OCP's fault, to be fair.
Very much so.
I am not even entertaining the possibility that Kane is the real villain of this movie. So Kane goes violent. RoboCop shows up after he guns down a bunch of after Kane guns down a bunch of people. Thanks for waiting for him to gun down all those people, by the way, RoboCop. This is totally a good thing for you to be doing. So they fight for a little
Just
bit.
hanging out.
They fall off a building. Yeah. They fall off a building. They fight there. They blow him up 3 times. There's 2 obvious fake cuts of him dying, which doesn't make any sense because RoboCop was able to survive these attacks. So why wouldn't RoboCop 2 be able to survive these things? He just lets people shows up. RoboCop actually dicks off like 2/3 of the way through this fight, and the actual police just got to fight him off for a little bit. And Anne actually runs and pins RoboCane against the wall with one of the police tanks, which is a thing that police have, tanks, whatnot. So yeah, and then RoboCop shows back up at the scene, and he hands Anne some nuke and tells her to give it to RoboCane. I assumed it was going to be some sort of poison nukes. Like Kane wouldn't be able to help taking the nuke, so he'd like swallow this poison nuke, and that would cause Kane to like malfunction or whatever. That's not what happens. They're just luring him into position so that RoboCop can jump onto his back and like punch into him, and eventually he just like Mortal Kombats his spine out, and he has to smash it for some reason.
It's a justifiable thing to do.
I mean, he does it, but I don't think it's was that like, is there a wireless connection, or is the robot able to? it doesn't seem like Kane dies and the RoboCam stops until they smash the brain, which is weird. I don't get it. It would have been. I wish they would have found a way to do a cooler spine rip here. That would have been fun.
Missed opportunity.
So yeah, Kane's been defeated. OCP plans to pin this whole thing on Juliet because, to be fair, should be in jail. Absolutely. And and he's like, and the cops lament that the old man is getting away with all this, and he tries, and they do like a final line in the movie where he's just like, well, he's only human or something. I don't remember. They don't beat the old man at the end of the movie for some reason. I don't. Why? Don't act like you're in an upper hand. You still have a very major threat to beat at the end of this movie. You directed Empire. You should know better.
You know better.
Yes. Everyone involved should know better. This is not a victory, merely a respite. Also, OCP still owns Detroit.
And RoboCop's got full power.
Fuck. And that's the end of the movie. Yeah, he's he's got no directives.
He's unbound by
he gets his directives back in the next movie somehow. I hope there's an explanation for that. Well, Curtis, you had a positive opinion of this. Why don't you explain yourself?
Why do I explain myself? Well, maybe I'm slightly biased because of the last movies you had me watch. And watching a robot cop absolutely annihilate other robots and people in a very comical atmosphere, I actually found it quite enjoying. It might have also been because I watched the movie in the morning and I usually don't quite get my brain working too well till later in the day. But I actually did not mind watching RoboCop beat the piss out of thugs and everything. And in general, I think it was one of the better movies that I've watched for the podcast, if I'm being honest.
I can see that. It is at least entertaining. The fight scenes are fun for the most part.
I think the fight scenes are good, and the things that maybe turned off or were the lesser part of the movie, maybe I just saw more comedical or comical, whatever the hell proper word for that is.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think the first RoboCop had the answers. Really had the answers to these either. Like, he was still like working for OCP at the end of the last movie. So there's it's like a bit of disingenuous of me to like say like, oh yeah, this movie's betraying everything that was good about the first one. It's like, yeah, you could say the same things about the first one too. It's just a bit more it's rubbed in your face for like 40 minutes instead of like 30 seconds. And maybe and a lot of this is like, I think recent events have made like a lot of people look at cops very differently. There's that too.
True.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I kind of like like I said at the beginning, I like that they gave us the giant robot fight that we didn't get in the last one. That's a positive thing.
Yeah, they definitely did not. There was no lacking of action from RoboCop's perspective. RoboCop came in and he did things before asking questions, that's for sure, on almost every account.
Yeah, and they did it for good money, actually. They didn't spend like a ton more money than they did in the last movie. They just like, okay, we're gonna do like a little bit more action in this one, and like give us the action scenes we didn't get. And it does build tension fairly well. I just disagree with the ending. It's not like as if they don't technically follow the tension building rules. Like, RoboCop gets beat up halfway through, establishing Kane as like a valid threat compared to the last guys. So yeah, there's something. The effects are on par with the last one, which is not something you can always say with like these like 80s action hero sequels. Like, I think to like Rambo 2, and that's like so antithetical to what at least this movie wants to do in theory. We're like, oh, that's just like really dumbed down, whereas this is like, this missteps. This isn't like necessarily dumb, I think. Um, any other fancy points before we want to make scores?
Hmm. Mm, nope, I think I'm pretty good. Yeah, I think they did the effects in that were pretty good. They had some good parts in the fight scene. Definitely some story things that could have been avoided or handled better, but that either hindered the film or, in my opinion, made it funnier at moments. Like, I will admit, having the kid as second in command of the drug empire caught me off guard at first, but I quite found it humorous how it was handled, and the fact that, like, I would always be like, well, what is a kid gonna do? You know, like the cop's there. And then like the first thing he does is shoot a gun at the cops. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're going there. And then he pulls out that wire thing and starts choking out the woman cop. And I'm just like, all right, maybe he is second in command, even though he's maybe 10 at best
Yeah,
years old.
yeah. It's maybe like it's obvious. This is obviously a decision made by a drug addict to put this kid in charge, but like it's not like hackneyed like you'd expect in any other movie. In any other movie, RoboCop would like help this kid like redeem himself, and this kid would have been like the
Mm.
side cop to RoboCop after a while. But no, this kid is a villain. Like in this movie, like at least like I don't see him as one, but not for lack of trying. That's not the movie's fault.
Yeah.
It's an interesting choice making the kid like non-redeemable or like not redeemed toward the end. Um they show that like it's oh yeah, it's sad he dies, but and that he led down this life of crime and whatnot, but he's still like a villain who's like bad in his own right and maybe just doesn't lack the physical strength to do everything in the movie. Yeah, so yeah, and maybe I am just like taking it too seriously, which is not something I normally say for review, but I think yeah, it is funny at very least in parts, and I'm viewing it with like a certain brain, and like I saw those hints. So it's one of those things. Like I had those hints of like, there's a good sci-fi movie here somewhere. This might be fun, and then I didn't get that, so I'm upset.
Very true. Very true.
So yeah, maybe there's a point. Yeah, there is a point to be made there. Well, what do you give the movie, Curtis?
I've got to give it a. I'm trying to remember what my other scores are. I'm pretty bad, so I'm trying to keep the Curtis scale, as I
Um,
call it, because I usually am not as accurate as everyone else. So I think a 7.5 would be good for it, because I think it's not as good as we did. Dawn of the Dead last. Does that sound right?
yeah, that was what we did last. That was the
Yeah,
last
and I
thing we
think I gave
did.
that one an 8.
Yeah, we did Poultrygeist before that, and then we did Tusk before that.
Yes, so I'd give it a 7.5. It's above Tusk and the Poultrygeist for sure, but I don't think it's as high as Dawn of the Dead.
I'm giving it a 3. Yeah. Um
So higher than Poultrygeist still?
yeah, no, I put up with this more than Poultrygeist. Yeah. This is maybe like a few like this could maybe be a 4 too if I really wanted to.
If we
I'm
stretched
just
it.
like extra upset with it. If I was like a couple of years ago, I'd maybe call this a 4. There's a part of my life where this is a 4.
But right now it's a 3. Maybe I need to go back and watch RoboCop 1 and then make my decision. Then I can base it off the other RoboCops. But maybe since it was my first time seeing RoboCop in general and in action, I was like, yo, this is not bad.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know that it's like RoboCop 1's better. I think I'd maybe give that a 7. That's all right too. It's something, but I kind of like soured myself to it a little bit. Just like thinking like it's one of those things where like the sequels made the original a little bit worse. Anyway, yeah, this is like a 5.8 on IMDb, a 30 on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 42 on Metacritic. But 89% of Google users like it. You're a bit above curve. I'm on the lower end of the curve. So there's that.
So it evens out.
Yeah, yeah. The movie made $45.7 million off a $14 million budget, which is a profit. It did obviously get one more sequel, which did fail financially. I think it's worse than this. Yeah, it's. I wish Frank Miller had made this like 3 years ago. Like a little less crazy Frank Miller. That might have done this movie some good. But I see why they would have recruited Frank for this. To be honest, like I see where that decision was made. It's at very least a nuanced decision because he does Sin City and he does superhero comics. So that I can see that like adapting very well to the RoboCop universe. I may not like the results, but like I'm like in 1990, that's not like a terrible decision to try to make. There certainly were some ideas more prone to failure that exist. And that seems like decent bet to try to bring this prolific comic creator into the silver screen. Obviously, Frank Miller's film career isn't all that good. I mean, he wrote RoboCop 3 and he directed The Spirit, which is a really bad movie. So yeah, that's that, I think. Yeah, we're at a decent amount of time. I think we can call it. Curtis, where can everyone find you?
If people want to find me, they can find my YouTube channel at the Just Playing Universe, where I do weekly short videos and all sorts of other fun content. They can also find me over on Twitch for Just Plain Cheese if they like some gaming content. And yeah, those are the main spots. You can also find both Just Plain Cheese and Just Plain Universe on Instagram and Facebook as well, but those are the main ones.
You can find the podcast at Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at KCCCinemaPod. Although we are just called Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast there too, but that's the at because that's how Twitter works. You can find my personal Twitter at Lord Brokenshire, and you can find Cody's Twitch channel at The Real Cody Upman. He's streaming semi-regularly, actually. He does a lot of he does mostly Magic the Gathering. He's done Among Us a couple times. I think he did League of Legends at least once. So yeah, check that out. I might make an appearance on there eventually. And we will see you next week. Curtis will be back, I think, late December, unless I need him earlier.
Sounds good.
So see you guys soon. I'm going to stop recording.